Huh. Hitchhiking is a scary concept when you think about it. Being stranded in a place with no other choice but to gamble at being picked up by a complete stranger and hopefully being taken back to safety. It's panic inducing for both sides, even. You don't know who you'd be picking up or who picked you up. Hitchhiking is a prominent motif in Fears to Fathom Chapter 2, Norwood Hitchhike. Fears to Fathom as a whole is a small series of games based off of true stories that happen to real people. And because of all this, the game aspects are rooted in reality. These are real things that could happen to anyone, even you or me. I already played and reviewed the first chapter, Home Alone, and now I want to continue with reviewing the second chapter. I've already fully played it on this channel, so if you want to watch it after this, it will be at the end card after the video. However, for right now, I want to go over the story of the chapter in grave detail, then dive into how well made the game is, and truly what makes it scary. And trust me, it's scary. So without further ado, this is Fears to Fathom Chapter 2. The story takes the perspective of a young woman named Holly. She is a big fan of nerd conventions and goes to them often. Even though her parents showed their concern for Holly going on interstate trips like this alone, they still let her nonetheless. When the game starts, we are driving back from one of these conventions after being forced to take the long road back due to traffic. We're about halfway through until our gas light turns on, indicating that we need to fill up if we're gonna make it back home. Thankfully, there's a small gas station just up ahead. We park our car and walk into the store to pay, only for us to be warned by the employee that there are stories about a creature known as the Norwood Valley Monster. A young woman in a bright blue gown that terrorizes people that pick her up thinking she's a hitchhiker. After being warned again, we leave the gas station only to see a strange man getting a little too close to our car. He quickly shuffles away into his white van and drives away. Odd, but we can't really do much about it. So we fill our tank and get a move on. After another little bit of driving, that valley monster thing still lingers in the back of our mind. That thought gets interrupted, however, when we see two trees blocking the road in front of us. Two trees that have totally fallen over naturally, not by any human tampering whatsoever. We get out of the car and move them out of the way, only to find out that our car won't start again. As the car hiccups, we come to the terrifying realization that we are stranded, alone, with no one with us. And the only way we could possibly make it back home would be to hitchhike. So after a good while of waiting for cars to come, with most of them ignoring us, we finally get the attention of a truck that stops for us. Turns out it was one of the other customers back at the gas station. He says he's willing to take us to the next sign of civilization, and we cautiously hop into his car. While in the car, we talk about the monster rumors, the guy at the gas station, and how a car full of gas won't start. It's an awkward conversation, but it doesn't feel like we're in any immediate danger. Time passes, and we get to a small motel in the middle of nowhere called the Roadway Inn. We talk to the man at the front desk, ask for a room in roadside service, and we get our key to room 9, where we will be spending the night. We open the door and see a pretty comfortable looking room. It's old and run down, but homey in a weird way. Too bad there's a creep in the bathroom. This is Tommy. He's one of the inn staff, one of the only members of staff. There's a creepy vibe to him that just rubs you the wrong way. He asks us to give him a moment while he sets up the room, and we use that time to get our stuff from the front desk. After that, he leaves us be. However, he warns us that some things in the room don't work, especially the phone. We lay down, finally getting a chance to rest after all that driving and stress, only to get a heart attack by seeing a silhouette in our window looking right at us. We get up to look, but by then they have already walked away. After witnessing that, we come up with the idea that the best way to respond to this is to walk out of our room and get a cup of coffee while our adrenaline levels are already as high as the Empire State Building. We walk across a parking lot and find a coffee vending machine. We select our drink and consume it right away. Then we trip out on motel vending machine coffee. After stumbling our way through the parking lot and into our room, we collapse into our bed. A few hours pass and we wake up in the middle of the night with a headache and a complete stranger in our closet. We get a knock at our door. The man on the other side says that it's Joe from the front desk. With tension already high, we very cautiously open the door. He tells us that he's been getting complaints that we're making too much noise, even though we've been passed out for the last 3 hours. We tell him about the coffee machine, but he says that they don't have one. And sure enough, when we go to prove it to him, the thing disappears like a Phineas and Ferb invention. He tells us just to go back to our room and take some meds that are in the drawer. We go back and grab the pills, and on our way to get some water for the pills, we notice that the closet is empty. Thinking it could be our imagination, we take the pills only to see a sudden flash of a camera coming through our window. Just as the panic starts to set in, we get another knock at our door. Peeking through the window, we see it was the man from the gas station, the one who was tampering with our car. We ask what he wants, and all he says is he needs help with something. Then he says he's not a cop and just wants to talk. Before we can tell him to go away, he starts banging on the door furiously. With no way to escape, we hide in the closet and stay as quiet as possible. He manages to break into our room and starts looking around for us. He checks the bed, then the bathroom. Right as he starts walking towards the closet, we see Joe creep from around the corner and sock him right in the head, saving us. After this whole ordeal, Joe tells us not to get the cops involved because that might damage the motel's reputation. We get our car fixed and are finally able to make it back home. So that was a story. Like I mentioned in the intro, hitchhiking is a scary concept. The fact that everything that went down in the story was caused by someone needing to hitchhike is so outlandish, yet so believable. In the real world, you don't know what strangers are capable of, or what they're thinking, or what they're planning. It's terrifying to think about how this exact scenario could happen to you or me. And it's even more frightening to think about what could have happened if Joe didn't step in, or if that nice truck guy didn't pick us up. This story is perfect for the Fears to Fathom franchise. Now, the story definitely fits the Fears to Fathom criteria, but what about the gameplay? What mechanics and visuals make this chapter so scary? And how well does the gameplay complement the story? Well, that's what I want to talk about next, and trust me, I have a lot to say, so let's dive into that. Like I said earlier, with this game being based on a true story, all aspects of the game's mechanics are in some way rooted in reality. And just like Chapter 1, the game creates a perfect atmosphere of fear and mystery while still feeling realistic. I feel like the designers had the mentality of always feeling trapped throughout this chapter. They wanted to find a way to make you feel claustrophobic at all times, regardless of the fact that you are moving to different locations over the course of the chapter. When we are first thrown into the game, we are in a car surrounded by a dark forest. Immediately, we are given this feeling of isolation and uncertainty, with the forest filled with large trees, tangled bush, and animals that could be around any corner. Having a large forest surround us at the start of the game makes us feel claustrophobic and truly alone. The designers used the concept of the forest well, and it's something they would go on to perfect in a later chapter. Cough. Then we arrive at another location, the gas station. While this place is a little more safe now that there are people around, it is still in the middle of nowhere. If anything were to happen here, there would be no escape really. It's the trees and forest as far as the eye can see, so we feel as if this place is the only semblance of safety we have. It's the closest thing we have to normalcy, but it still feels weird to be in. It feels like the uncanny valley of locations, if that makes sense. After that, we have the most isolating location of all in a literal sense, that being stranded in the middle of a field with a broken down car. We are far away from any kind of landmark, it's the middle of the night, and we have no means of getting around. We feel so powerless in this state, and that is partially the reason we decide to hitchhike. We don't want to be in the middle of nowhere with God knows what. We need to get out of here. Thankfully, someone finally does help us out, and even though it's not a location, being in a truck with a stranger feels like we're still trapped. It's a cramped space, and a vehicle that with one wrong turn can cause a crash that can take multiple lives. And that's not mentioning the long list of things this man could do in this truck. After a fairly stressful drive, we end up at the Roadway Inn. Now we're back to the uncanny valley feeling. I mentioned this in my gameplay video, but there's something both comforting but anxiety-inducing about small motels like this. It has this antique charm to it, but also a lot of bad things can happen in motels. It feels almost liminal. Personally, I blame cartoons for making motels seem like a fun place to take vacations. I mean Steven Universe, Incredibles 2, the Goofy movie, come on. And finally, the last and definitely most stressful location is our motel room. It's a small, cramped space that, while kind of comfy looking, still feels very claustrophobic. There's only one way out, not a lot of places to hide, hide, and also some of the things in the room just don't work. It also doesn't help that there was a complete stranger in the bathroom. Another aspect of the motel that adds a fear factor is how our vision to the outside world is very restricted. There is no people at the door, and our window view is mostly blocked by the outside wall of the porch. This way we can't really make out anything going on unless it's right in front of us or right outside our door. It's what makes opening the door in this chapter scary, or opening a door in any horror game for that matter. We don't know what's on the other side at any given moment, and that's what makes every interaction in this room terrifying. The fear of the unknown. There is so much we don't know about all the locations we visit in this chapter, and the designers did an amazing job of keeping us on our toes and in the dark about how this area works at any given time. So bravo, game devs, you made me lose sleep for multiple days. The only thing that I'm not so sure about when it comes to the game is the Norwood Valley monster rumor. Like, I get it was a red herring to make us feel more scared when the car breaks down, but since this game is again rooted in reality, I had a hard time actually believing that there was an actual cryptid monster on the bridge. Like, come on, seriously, you think I'd believe a copy-paste creepypasta like that? Anyways, that's enough about the gameplay. Now I want to go into its equally important and equally scary other half, that being the sound design. Like I've mentioned in previous videos, gameplay and sound design go hand in hand. They're the perfect pair, and they support each other to make extremely effective games, and this chapter is no different. Just like in the first chapter, the game creates realistic sounds that use our thoughts and responses against us. Right out of the gate, when we are driving at the start of the game, we get a low gas tank sound. Now, I'm not sure how many cars make a sound when that light turns on, but I know that some do, and I know a lot of you watching also dread when that light comes on at the most inconvenient times. And later on, when moving the logs out of the road, we get the most stressful sound of all, a car not starting. The sound of the car revving and revving, but only for it to stop suddenly, is an extremely slow burn that no one in a car, driving or not, wants to hear. When we hear that, it slowly forces us to realize that we are alone in the middle of nowhere with no way of getting out. And finally, when we get to the motel, we experience a plethora of stressful sounds, the nichest one being the phone ringing. I think part of the reason for it being scary is the fact that Tommy did say the phone doesn't work, although another aspect I would say is just the fact that the phone is ringing at all. Like, it doesn't matter if I know who's calling me. For some reason, there is a surge of anxiety that I get whenever I get a phone call, and I know I'm not alone in that. The most stressful sound in the motel, however, hands down, is the knocking on the door. Being home alone and getting a knock at the door is already stressful in itself, but now that we are in a motel room in the middle of nowhere, alone, stacks that anxiety tenfold. It is a huge gamble of what's on the other side, and the amount of times that characters knock on that door doesn't help. It especially doesn't help when someone just decides to start banging on it without warning. Creep. Overall, the sound design in this game plays perfect support to an already high-stress situation, creating sounds that we hear on a daily basis, but in a way that causes our brain to immediately jump to the worst conclusion possible. And that's how you make a scary game. In conclusion, Chapter 2 is an amazing sequel to the Fears to Fathom lineup. From the story of the chapter being a scenario that anyone can relate to and resonate with, to having game mechanics and sound design that make us feel grounded in reality, while also letting our imagination run wild in the most frightening way possible. The designers created an amazing chapter that will go down in horror game history. In terms of comparing it to the first chapter, I think I like the first chapter better. Not only do I think it's a scenario more people can relate to or resonate with, but the fact that it was short and sweet while also constantly keeping us in a high-stress situation was just slightly more effective than Chapter 2. However, I did lose sleep over this chapter, so that deserves some credit. But yeah, that's all I had to say. Now, if you'll excuse me, I haven't had dinner yet, and Dave's Hot Chicken closes in 20 minutes. Did I remember to fill the gas up or...